Yo, what's up? Yeah, it's been great doing this whole series on these NPCs. You know, it's been kind of cool. Kind of reminiscing about the older NPCs and also about when they were in Japan. And it's really cool that they're going to have their 35th anniversary coming up, which is like amazing for anybody making any kind of gear, particularly a drum machine that still survives over the years. And I've seen so many NPCs, and I've always wondered a lot about the inside of the NPC. What goes on behind the lines. Like, why did they get up with Roger Lynn? I wasn't too sure about it, but I know that everybody wanted to have a drummer. Who wants to record a drummer for all day? It takes forever as an engineer to record a drummer, then make a song. You want to like, hey, can we do this faster and see if the artist is any good? If the artist is good, then we can bring a drummer in later on and do the whole album. So it's a really good idea. But there was a guy inside. His name is Marco Alpert. And he has all the information. I want to put him in this video here as part of this series so that this series will last forever in a way for all the people who remember those years. And of course, Marco was involved in the MPC 2000 and also the EMU SB1200. So he knows about sampling drum machines and the history of it, actually. Let's check this out.
I had gotten a connection to AKAI through a friend of mine who had worked at EMU and left. And they also had a great, they were actually considered our main competitor in the sampling world during most of the time we were there. And they had a problem in that they had distribution in the United States that they weren't particularly happy with out of Texas. And they had it in their mind that they wanted to establish their own home-owned AKAI USA. And they were having some issues with their image and marketing at the time, and my friend put me in touch with them, and I had some conversations with them just to see what they were about. And when it became clear I wanted to leave EMU, I started talking to them about possibly acting as a consultant to them, to help them with setting up AKAI USA. And after about 6 months of conversations back and forth, trip to Japan, that sort of thing, eventually they decided that they wanted to give that a try. So I retired from EMU and joined, well, I didn't actually join them. I remained an independent consultant, but I set up something called the AKAI US R&D Center up in Santa Cruz. But it wasn't really much about R&D. It was really more about marketing and marketing strategy and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And they financed that through, but I stayed an independent contractor. And that was really quite exciting. The interesting thing is, before I left EMU, I was focusing on trying to get them to do a follow-on to the SB1200 because we were having trouble continuing to make them because the parts we had used were becoming obsolete. I mean, it was just getting to the point where we were just no longer able to buy the parts to make SB1200. It had such an unexpectedly long life because of the rap hip-hop adoption of it. And I don't know whether it was because Creative wanted to focus on higher volume things or whatever. I could never get them to go for this. I said, you're missing an opportunity here. The SB1200 is an iconic product, and were you to do a follow-on into the 16-bit world that still allowed you to make it 12-bit if you wanted to, and and had that SB1200 DNA, it would be an enormous hit in the rap and hip-hop world. It really would, and you're just missing an opportunity, and they just refused to do that. So when I went to AKAI, and so I go to AKAI where the other iconic hip-hop machine, the MPC 3000, is, and my first thing there was, look, you've got this $3,500 flagship here, but with this sort of democratization of music production that's happening, there's a lot of people coming in on the bottom who really want to take part in this, and they would love a piece of something that's so iconic in their world, like an MPC 3000. So if we could build a lower cost MPC, I guarantee you are going to, that thing would be in a monster hit. And their first reaction was, no, we can't do that. The MPC 3000 is this flagship, and this would take away from it, and it would devalue it. And I said, no, it wouldn't. I mean, particularly if you look at the rap hip-hop world. Rap hip-hop people, if they can afford an MPC 3000, and there's a lower cost one down here, they're going to buy the MPC 3000. They want to be seen to have the pro best. What you're going to get down here are people who simply cannot afford an MPC 3000. And the MPC brand is going to be, it's going to spread throughout that entire world. And it was back and forth and back and forth, and eventually it was like, look, you hired me to give you strategic marketing consultation. Do you want me to or not? I mean, you presumably hired me because you value my history of this sort of thing, and I really think we ought to do this. So eventually they said, okay, kind of reluctantly, we'll give it a try. And so they started what became the MPC 2000. And it was an interesting process working back and forth. I went to Japan 3 or 4 times a year, and AKAI had an R&D team in the UK as well, and we used to go there. So it was a lot of traveling during those years. But I forged a relationship with a product manager in Tokyo, and we worked back and forth on what exactly the MPC 2000 would be. Roger Lin wasn't involved in this. His contract with them had ended at the time. And eventually the MPC 2000 came out and became the single most successful launch in the history of AKAI. That thing sold like 10,000 the first year at about $1,500, which in those days was unheard of. And suddenly the world of young people doing their own rap hip hop production in their bedroom exploded around the MPC 2000. And it was an amazing thing to see. And I have to admit, I felt fairly smug about having been right about that.
That was pretty good. That's a good interview. You can hear more of the interview. I'll leave a link in the bottom. It's at the Namm Oral History Program. And he has a pretty long interview there talking more about his experiences when he started working for EMU and also AKAI. So check that out. But I want you to hear this because our series ends in Japan, but next we'll start out in America. The next series will start with the American idea of building an MPC. Peace.